Hello everybody, welcome to Community Forum. My name is Roy Cohen. I am the host of this week's show, and we have a very special guest on that most of you probably know. It's Walter Parshley. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you, Roy. Good to be here.
It's good to have you on. It's been a while. Walter and his wife Donna and son Mark run a real estate business in Stoughton known as the Parshley Team. It's located at 2 Canton Street here in Stoughton, and it's in the former Corcoran Shoe Building. It's next to the railroad tracks. It's the building that Steve Kelly owns, and he's done a lot of refurbishing, and there's a lot of businesses in there. Walter's staff consists of Patty, their indispensable legal secretary, as well as their longtime associates Tom, Brett, Matt, Joanna, and Kathleen, all Stoughtonites. They're a full-service residential and commercial office which has been in business, believe it or not, since the 60s. As young as he looks, it's amazing. Walter and Donna live in Stoughton and the proud grandparents of Madison Grace. She's a new one, and number 11. You're ahead of me. Just to give you a little reason why I thought it would be nice to bring Walter on, if you'll just bear with me as I kind of go through his resume. He's been a very active citizen of the town of Stoughton. He's a past president and director of the Tri-Country Board of Realtors, the Realtor of the Year, past director of the Greater Brockton MLS, former regional vice president of the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, past president and director of the Stoughton Lions Club, still active with that. He's a former Lion of the Year. He's a past president and director of Stoughton Chamber of Commerce, a member of the Knights of Columbus, San Salvador Council number 200, a former youth football, baseball, and basketball golf coach, associate member of the USGTF, you'll have to tell us what that is, member of the Stoughton High School Athletic Hall of Fame, a former firefighter in the town of Stoughton and an EMT, and a former military policeman, Staff Sergeant E6, and attended Stoughton High and Burdett College. And let's start off with one thing that kind of, in my mind, you said you were a former firefighter. Now, Stoughton's fire department has not always been the way it is now.
That's true.
It used to be a call fire department, if I remember. And if there was a bad fire, you had the whistle in the town, downtown, that would blare out, and whoever was within earshot would then come rushing into the station, put on the outfits, and take a truck and go do the job. Is that the way it worked?
That's exactly right. You had some permanent firefighters, but you had a lot of call to support the permanent firefighters.
Right.
And I was a call at first. And when the whistle went off, it was a box alarm. Somebody pulled a pull station, and the whistle would go off. The one you'd hear 12:05 every day in a 3 whistle test.
At noontime.
At noontime, yeah. And so when the call firefighters heard the whistle, they'd run to the fire station and jump on a truck and so forth. The problem with me is I was in the real estate business then too, and I'd have a $125 suit on in those days. Now it's 400 and something. But I ripped the crotch of the suit getting on the back step of the fire engine. I get soil on the pants. You'd make $10 for responding to the box alarm, and you'd ruin a suit. So it got to be a little expensive for me, but it was so much fun and such a bond with the firefighters. It was well worth it.
The signal, it's starting to ring a bell. I shouldn't say it. It's starting to make some sense to me that the signal itself would replicate the box. If the box was number box 205, would the signal then go off twice, then 0, then 5? Or would it just go off as a call to come to work?
Oh, it would come to the main station, the only station we had at the time in Freeman Street. And you'd hear ding, ding, ding. The box numbers would come in. Somebody'd see an old box next to a telephone pole. And they'd see a fire or an accident, they'd pull that box. There'd be ding, ding, dings going on in the office on the first floor. And we had to wait to read all the dings to look on the board to see what box it was and where it was located. And then we spawned from there. So I didn't know you were going to ask me these questions. I would have been a little better prepared.
No, you're fine.
But those were the days. They're still understaffed. Trust me on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, let's get back to the real subject. There's not a lot of businesses around that have been in business as long as you have. How many years?
Well, about 56. My dear friend Gene Canada and I
remember Gene.
We're often referred to as older than dirt as it relates to the real estate business, the length of time we've both been involved. She's been involved longer than me. But I took the real estate exam right after high school in 1963.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been about 56 years.
Wow. And what made you decide on going into the real estate business besides becoming a rich man?
Well, that's debatable, but, well, it wasn't uncommon for young boys to want to be a policeman or a firefighter in those days, and maybe even now. But one Sunday afternoon, I remember we were having a Sunday dinner. Remember those Sunday dinners? The whole family would be
Sure.
there. And your mother and grandmother and aunt and sister were preparing like the equivalent of a Thanksgiving Day meal every Sunday, which was fabulous. But we'd have conversations. So we'd talk about our goals and aspirations and what happened last week and what we're planning on happening next week. And everybody in the family would be listening intently while we're eating. Nobody would be like this,
Oh, they didn't have
They didn't have those things in those
no
days.
cell phone games,
No.
no apps.
But we get a lot of things done at the dinner table. But at that particular time, my father announced that he was thinking in terms of taking a real estate course at Lee Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And they still have Lee Institute
Right.
courses. And that kind of piqued my interest too, because I kind of like sales. So I said, well, I'll piggyback on him, and I studied with him. So I was blessed to be a military policeman for 6 years, a firefighter for 5 years, and real estate agent for 56 years and counting.
Mm-hmm. A full-time firefighter or a call firefighter?
I started off as a call, then I became a permanent. But I gave it up for a couple of months, and then I went back on and missed it so much. But then I had to give it up because too many commitments.
Too many suits getting ripped in the crotch.
Well, that was only part of it. I didn't mind that part as much, but I was out of town a lot, so I had to give it up.
Did you
And
work?
don't forget, in those days, the firefighters were getting $15,000 a year. That wasn't quite enough to.
Well,
it was okay, but not that okay.
that's more than $1 an hour.
Yeah.
Not much more, though. Do you work? Did you work for any other real estate office during that time, or have you always been on your own?
Oh no, I started off. In fact, before I took the test, I stopped at Sam Eager's office, Eager Realty, and he was located where Sushi is now.
Correct.
And that used to be where Dunkin' Donuts was before Sushi, and then Sam Eager had the office there previously. So I stopped at his office not knowing him, but I had a question that was on the exam, and I said, well, I'll ask Mr. Eager, he's in the real estate business. So I asked him the question, and he didn't know the answer, but it was because after 1960, you had to take a test to get a real estate license. But prior to 60, when Mr. Eager got his license, you just applied for it, no test required. So some of these questions, they weren't that tricky, but he didn't have the answer, but I found out. The point is, he said, if you pass the test, why don't you come and see me? I'll put you to work. I said, well, that's kind of nice. So I got there, and when did I get there? During the blue laws, and you couldn't have your real estate office open on Sunday, which was arguably the busiest day. And the only things that could be open, I think, were gas stations, drugstores, and convenience stores.
No liquor stores.
No liquor stores.
Definitely no.
But so Sam was not so dumb. We'd be at the office, but we couldn't go inside the office, so he had a long cord with a phone out to his car. So we'd have ads in the Penny Saver and ads in the Boston Globe, and we'd get calls from it. We'd tell the people to meet him, and so we didn't violate any laws. We weren't in the office. But anyway, Sam found a way, and it worked out pretty well. But After, you want me to go through a list? That's why I brought some notes here, so
Fine.
it would aid me a little bit in my memory, or lack thereof. Right after Sam Eager's office, I get recruited by Manny Rodriguez, who was a selectman and a builder, and he owned Major Realty at the time. And
In Manny's place.
And Manny's place afterwards, that's right where the office was. And where Oscar St. Germain's office was. Manny was right next door. But anyway, my father and I worked there, and my father hired Ralph Higgins. He sold Ralph Higgins a house on Park Street, and then got Ralph into the real estate business, and Ralph worked for Major Realty for a long time, then opened up on his own. But my father and Ralph used to work together in Boston at a company that used to produce guided missile parts for the Air Force. And they became friendly, so again, my dad sold Ralph a house, got him in business, and Ralph did a great job on his own for years, and he passed away a few years ago. We sold his office for his widow, Arlene. But after that, went to Mike and Helen Cremens' office, and we learned a lot there. That was a busy office. It was real estate and insurance, and man, it was a lot of work for Helen. I remember Helen typing endlessly. I'm going to tell you about the old days, all the paperwork we had. But Helen, on a Monday morning, especially after we'd have a few deposits over the weekend, Helen would be the one to type. Well, I'd still be typing now, some of the stuff that we had to do. But she'd have in her inbox a list of things to type, you know, all kinds of forms. So God bless Helen. So that was a great learning experience. I watched the Cremens clan grow up. It was really, I had a lot of fun there. And then I bought 2 Century 21 franchises, one in Stoughton and one in Falmouth. And that's really why I had to get off the fire department, because I was in route a lot, you know, down to Falmouth or wherever. So then after the Century 21, I worked for Remax, Steve and Sally Koss, for 12 years, I think from 1988 to 2000. And in 1988, we got the first fax machine that I ever heard of or saw. And that saved many a deal, I'll tell you, in 1988. So Steve and Sally were cutting edge, leading edge. They were great. And then after that, we went on our own, and I was on my own, and Chris Layton was working for us, and he asked if he could be a partner. And I said, I don't know, Chris, we're kind of set in our ways. So he said, okay. A couple months later, he said, I'd really like to be a partner. So I said, well, let me ask my wife, Donna. So I asked Donna, and Donna says, wouldn't you like to have a day off once in a while? So Chris became a partner for a couple of years. He's in Florida now. He was a good guy. And then I had a stint with Realty Direct, Patrick O'Donnell and Tom Trong. And they were good guys. But then full circle, went on our own. So, what was I going to say about that? Oh, whatever I was going to say. I think I said it.
That sounds like
That covers it.
a lot of reasons for flashbacks for anybody that's been around for a while.
Oh,
All
yeah.
these names that you're coming up with, I certainly remember them. I've been a resident of Stoughton since 1968, and I certainly remember all these people that you're talking about.
Well, speaking of flashbacks, not only do I want to thank you for inviting me to the show, but I want to thank you for all what you've done for SMAC over the years, but I also want to thank you on behalf of the Stoughton Lions Club and my wife, Donna. For over 30 years ago at RMC Printing, you were a rare person, because Donna and I would have to produce a Lions Club bulletin twice a month. And as you remember, we'd be in your basement of RMC Printing, the old A&P building, or Lehan building, whatever. And oftentimes it'd be 11 o'clock, midnight. You'd be typing the Lions Club bulletin, and Donna won the award, Best Bulletin in the district for the Lions Club, thanks to you and Carol and Mary. But
that was BC.
That a long time ago.
Before computers.
Oh yeah, before computers, all right. Oh, there's a, well, who does that now? Who would be at their business at midnight helping people produce?
There must be some
I don't know.
People out there someplace to do that.
Well, thank you for what you did
Well,
anyway.
it was a pleasure.
So that's reminiscing too.
Interesting. You're, you get a lot of satisfaction out of putting deals together. I mean, you get people coming in, they want to buy a house. You have a list of houses that are available, and then you try to find one that they would like, and then the deal hopefully will go through if they get the credit and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, yes. You hit it on the nose. It's a rewarding business, very satisfying. When we're matchmakers, so when you get the right match, you make the sale, and people find their dream home. It's so rewarding, and also, you know, people are looking for investment property, and it's the largest investment they make in a lifetime, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're part of that, and it's nice to see how it works out. And even once in a while, not long ago, I was at the Portuguese Club on 76 Porter Street, Louis de Camões, and it was actually a Lions Club meeting there. And the bartender, he's Portuguese, he said, "Hey, Mr. Parshley, you sold me my house 40 years ago." And I looked, I didn't recognize it, but the address, when he said the address, I remembered it. I'm an address guy.
That's okay.
I should be better with names. But anyway, it's so rewarding to have those experiences, and it's kind of a nice thing that agents do. But you said one thing, I'll just say how it is now. I'll probably say later on as well. You know, we used to match people up. We'd think, oh, let's see, let's call so-and-so on this house that just come in, whether it's our listing or multiple listing service, another agent's listing. Nowadays, you don't have to call anybody. They call you. They see a house on the internet, and they say, well, let's call XYZ Realty, and we want to see that house. And then they buy it. I say, what's the matchmaking there? I mean, it's so much easier now, trust me, than it was back then.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, does anybody ever come in with a check to say, I want a house, show them one, and bang, they buy it? Or, I mean, is every sale an uphill battle, or are there some easy ones?
Well, trust me, there are some easy ones, but there are some difficult ones to offset. But you want me to give you some examples? I knew you were going to ask that question. I got some examples of easy sales. They're not all easy, but you know certainly Brian McLaughlin and Jay Howland of D'Angelo's Sub Shop fame.
Yes.
Well,
I remember when they started down in Pleasant Street in Brockton.
That's right. And
in a house.
Great guy, yeah, in the corner. Great guys. They never forgot their friends, never forgot Stoughton. And half of their friends, all of their friends worked at D'Angelo somewhere, either owning a sub shop or working in a sub shop or doing something in some capacity, remodeling or whatever. But one day, Jay Howland and I used to go skiing. And Brian and I were in the Columbian Squires, which was like a junior Knights of Columbus. And Brian limps to this day because of me, but that's another story. But Jay and I go skiing, and we'd have a lot of fun. One day he called me, and he said, hey, Pash, have you got a house in Falmouth near the Mashpee line? It's got 3 or 4 bedrooms. We need it for our summer help, college kids. And I knew immediately. I said, oh, yeah, I've got a nice one at Seacoast Shores. It's right near the Mashpee line. And he said, how much is it? I told him. He said, is it a decent deal? I said, oh, pretty good deal. He said, okay, we'll take it. I said, all right.
Without seeing it?
I said, when do you want to see it? He said, no, it's okay, we don't have.
Ooh.
I said, what are you talking about? You got to see it. He said, no. He says, we need property to buy for our summer help. The employees. Without employees, we don't open up our business.
Right.
So what we need, buy a house, put the kids in it for the summer. And then they'll rip it apart. We'll put the crew there back to put it together again in September or whenever. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, we just need it. 30 days later, they own the house. I said, this is the easiest sale ever. But on the other hand, I had another one in Falmouth. I'll tell you about one in Stoughton too, but one in Falmouth, when I had the Century 21 office, I'll never forget, we had a rule. Whenever a New York license plate on a car would pull up in front of our office, and we were on Route 28, Davis Straits on the corner of Dillingham Avenue, we would say, okay, if it's an overcast or a non-beach day, and it's New York plates, you didn't have to take the people out and show them a waterfront house because they had no intention of buying. They just couldn't go to the beach. They wanted to look at houses. So long story short, we had 21 agents at the time, but usually 2 or 3 at the office. So the opportunity time agent was up, and he saw the plate, but it was not New York, it was Pennsylvania. He said, I'm not taking them. So I said to the backup guys, you taking them? He said, I don't want them. I said, well, somebody's got to take them. They're not New York. So nobody wanted them. So I took them, and I took them out, showed them one waterfront home, went back in the office in about 15 minutes, putting the deal together, and the other 2 are looking at each other. You know what I'm saying?
They should have done it.
You got to do these things.
Sure.
So anyway, there's some tough ones too. And on the other hand, Donnie had a tough one, and this is a good lesson for notary publics. This fellow we thought owned a house. Donnie got a deposit on it, and at the end, the lawyer did the title exam and said the fellow doesn't own the house. He said, what do you mean he doesn't own the house? Well, he bought it at foreclosure several years before, and he got a mortgage, and he paid the mortgage for, I think, about 3 or 4 years. And all of a sudden, he doesn't own the house. Well, what happened was, because it was a foreclosure, a bank executive had to sign the deed to this fellow, our seller. And the notary public has to identify the person, some form of identification, usually a picture ID, something along those lines. However, the notary public, rather than identify him properly, he identified him during the signing with a company name badge. Well, if your name is John Smith, and I take your name badge off and I put it on me, now I'm John Smith. So that was not acceptable. The notaries aren't supposed to do that. They're supposed to have, you know, personally know the people or identify them properly. Well, a name badge wasn't proper identification. So that took a couple of years to resolve, but it closed. And so we've had some good ones and some not so good ones, but it's been a lot of fun along the way.
You ever been involved with sales with famous people besides Brian McLaughlin?
Well,
we only have a couple of minutes left.
Oh man, we could go on for hours.
Yeah,
I can tell this. But yeah, Specs O'Keefe was kind of famous. We sold his house on Gleneagles Boulevard.
Right.
And I'll never forget getting a call from the FBI.
Who was Specs O'Keefe?
You know who Specs O'Keefe was. The FBI called me and said, when are you closing on Specs O'Keefe's house? And I think it was on a Thursday, I told them. They said, do not under any circumstances close before Thursday. And I said, why? He said, we'll let you know tomorrow. And they hung up. The next day, they called me. They said, we're at Specs O'Keefe's house. Come on down, let us in. We're going to dig up the cellar for the one more, last time looking for the Brinks money.
That was it?
That was it. They didn't find it.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Walter, it's been nice to have you on. You certainly deserve a little bit of recognition for all the time and effort that you've put into the community. I thank you very much for coming here and spending the time with us, and we'll see you again.
Roy, it's been a pleasure, and I'll tell you, I want to thank all our old salespeople. We used to have Jim Caniff, Jim Meager, and Jim Pooler. And somebody come in the office and say, hi, Jim. 3 guys would say hi.
You have to have a reunion.
Oh, well, they're all gone now, but they were great guys.
They're all gone. It's unfortunate. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. I think that's just about enough time for the public service announcements that we have, and then we'll be right back to say goodbye.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society. Yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662. Or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilsa Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m. Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
And the one thing that I want to add to the announcements is our Monday night bingo at the Hava Torah congregation. It's at 1179 Central Street in Stoughton. It is a well-participated bingo, and the reason is there's big money being given away. They have this coming week, hopefully somebody will win it, a prize of $1,199. If you fill up the card like everybody tries to do, or there's another one that's a $3,000 prize. So if you want to hopefully win some money, come on down. The doors open at 4:30 p.m. and the game starts at 6:30 p.m. Okay, we're back again. We decided to go another half an hour, and I'm going to put up the information for Walter's the Parshley team. It's located at 2 Canton Street in the old Corcoran Shoe Building. You can give Walter a call at 781-344-0077. That's 0077. He has a cell phone that you can call him on and reach him at all kinds of late hours. He'll love to hear from you. 781-408-1248. He's got a fax. It's 344-0078, almost the same as the regular number. You can email Walter at wparsley, P-A-R-S-H-L-E-Y, @gmail.com, and check out his website for the homes that you might be interested in, and that's www.parsley.com. And we're back. We're going to go for another half an hour. Walter's got some great stuff to talk about, and I just didn't feel that cutting him off at a half hour was fair. What challenges are there facing real estate agents in the real estate business in general?
Well, challenges, lots
besides
of
competition.
Well, years ago, the banks wanted to get in the real estate business, and that would have put us at a disadvantage, but the banks didn't prevail, so that was good news. But there's a lot of challenges. For example, the internet. Stoughton people are bombarded with ads on the internet, so somebody in East Oshkosh can have a nice, attractive ad on the internet, and somebody from Stoughton that owns a home could list with them, and the agent has no clue about what's going on in Stoughton, and as a result, they might not do as good a job as a local agent. So that's always something to consider. Plus, there's discount brokers. I think our old friend Tony Filos said it best. He said, I have no quarrel, something like this, not a quote, but I have no quarrel with my competitor who has the lower prices. He knows what his service is worth. Mm-hmm. I love that one. Anyway.
What a great guy he was, by the way.
What a great guy.
The best.
You couldn't beat that. You should have a story about a show just about him and all the good things he did in Stoughton.
Tony Filos that you're talking about was the owner of Twin Key Manufacturing.
Yeah, raincoat company.
They're up on Park Street, or they were up on Park Street, and they made raincoats there.
Yeah, we recently sold the building last year.
Oh, really?
But it's just, now there's a lot of artists in the building, because Tony's daughter, Elaine, is an artist.
Right.
A lot of people know that. She's a great artist, actually. And she's down the Cape now.
We were talking about famous people. Do you have any others that you might be able to relate that you sold houses to?
Well, I don't know.
Besides Specs O'Keefe?
Not so famous, but my heroes were the ones I sold to in Stoughton. A lot of well-known Stoughton people, and police chiefs and fire chief, two deputy fire chiefs, a lot of firefighters. One of whom was Victor Melendi and his wife Carol. They bought a home from us. And we just had, January 28th was Victor's anniversary of his death.
I saw that.
And we were at...
He was a firefighter that was caught in a fire on
Rose Street,
Rose
across
Street.
from the police station, rooming house fire.
yeah, with a blowback or something.
Correct, flashback.
Flashback.
But a really sad day for Stoughton, January 28th. And we were down, there was a gravesite January 28th, a few days ago. In fact, January 28th, you might remember, was the same date as the Challenger disaster when all the astronauts died. And it happened to be the same date as my father died years before.
Wow.
So I'd be at my father's grave, and then I'd go to Victor's grave on the 28th of every year. But anyway, so a lot of the police and fire, great people to deal with, but I had teachers too. Some of my favorite teachers, it's just unbelievable. Mrs. Leonard, for example, in the West Elementary School, she gave us a house to sell on Chestnut Street, and she was tremendous. Polly Savicki, when her husband Bill died, she gave us a house on Pleasant Street. She was very active in Stoughton Women's Club, and great lady. And in fact, her gravestone and her husband's gravestone is right next to my sister's at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery, and my sister, of course, is right next to my parents. So whenever I go to my parents or my sister's grave, I always have an extra flower for Mrs. Savicki as a small token of thanks for all the good that she did for all of us. And then we had Mr. Maioli, Frank Maioli, great guy, and he was a photographer. He took thousands of photographs of all the events that were going on at the high school, in addition to being a good teacher. He taught business law, and he was a busy guy.
Whatever happened to the pictures?
I got some of them hanging in my office, but
really?
But they're all over the internet now. Every class has pictures from Frank Maioli's, and he was just great. So there were a lot of them in yearbooks, but he was everywhere taking pictures, all sporting events and graduation, whatever it may be. He's like Hank Habaui is now.
Right.
And then Bob Lynch taught ancient history, and I loved ancient history. Bob was a great teacher. He did it right in my book. I got an A, like everybody else, I think, got an A in his class. He said what he was going to say, and then he said it, and then he told you what he said. So if you didn't get what was going on in that little class, you were in trouble. But I sold his house on the corner of Bassick Circle and Central Street, and then he moved down to his home in Mashpee when he retired. And he added on, he and his wife Evelyn added on to the Mashpee house. And one day he came to the Falmouth office, and he said, "I just got my real estate license. You need any help?" I said, "Sure." You wouldn't believe what a good salesman Bob Lynch was. He was so methodical. In fact, I should probably just say it as a sideline. There was this brain teaser that was produced by Harvard University. Somebody got their hands on it and gave it to me, and I flunked it. So I wasn't too bright, but 95% of the people in the country flunk it, those who took it. So anyway, everyone I gave it to flunked. I gave it to Bob Lynch, and he's looking it over, and he said, "Well, if I did that," and he's talking to himself, and next thing I know, he passed it. I said, "Bob," I said, "Thank you." It was unbelievable. So he was very methodical, and when he had a young couple, it was like his students. He dealt so well with them. And then he ended up working at the Museum of Science, I believe, in Boston. So he was in his element. So all great teachers, firefighters, police. I mean, it was just a wonderful experience dealing with these people, and that was our way of saying thank you.
Very nice. Do we have more?
Well, so many more. I don't want to take up.
Yeah,
all
go
the
ahead.
time.
We got time.
No, because once it gets started, it just there's other things we can cover.
Okay. What would you like to talk about?
Well, you were asking the differences between now and the old days.
Yeah, what would you consider to be the major difference between being a real estate agent in the good old days when you got started compared to today?
the business models of today are much more structured, and they get things done a lot easier and a lot quicker, as you know. And one example is we didn't have any GPSs in those days. So what we had was Rand McNally maps, universal maps. So in those days, a lot of cars had their back window and the ledge in the back window, a little shelf, and you'd see a Rand McNally or universal maps on the back shelf of every car.
What would you need that for?
Well, when you're going to go show houses, you had to know where they were, and if they were out of town, it was a real problem. You didn't know where the street was. Not like it now, you just press a button, you can find the place, but every map was torn and ripped, and we had lines going in all different directions. So there was no GPS, so we used the maps, and it was not too easy to find places, and some of them weren't even on the map that we were showing.
You needed a co-pilot to be with you to tell you, take this turn, take that turn.
You did.
Oh,
you
I
did.
remember those days.
There were no cell phones, obviously. And,
well, they had other means, didn't they? Like citizen band radios or two-way radios?
Well, that's true. I mean, we did use them at some later date. But Mike and Helen Kremens used to tell us, make sure you bring a lot of dimes with you, a roll of dimes, and we even had to have nickels, because you put a dime in the payphone, that's good for 3 minutes, I think. And then you'd hear the operator say overtime for a nickel for 1 more minute. So you're reaching for coins, you say, oh, I'm out of coins. You got to get shut off. We went through hell. So, but some of the payphones were, you had to find them first. If you're out of town, where's a payphone? You're going to be late for an appointment, you had to call, or you decide to see another house, you had to call and make the appointment. So you're looking for payphones all the time. Some of them were in the booth, some of them were in the rain. We'd be in the rain making calls on the payphone. So those were very interesting. Then computers. My God, it's now all the listings are on the internet, you know, for MLS and so forth. And in the old days, we'd share our listings in multiple listing service, but they'd be in a book format. And we'd get the books distributed every Tuesday morning at the Tip Top Cafe in Brockton by Jean Canada and her daughter Linda. Jean was the executive secretary of the Realtors and the MLS. And she'd call for the meeting every Tuesday and give out the books. So if you had 10 people at your office, you're walking out the door with 10 books. That doesn't happen now. So you had to be there. It was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And then Helen Kremens, no computers. Monday morning, I'd feel so bad for Helen, because we'd make the sales, or at least get the deposits over the weekend. And the paperwork would be in her file to type. Sometimes it'd be like a VA sale. There'd be a form called a determination, certificate for the determination of reasonable value. That was the VA version of an appraisal. You had to request an appraisal. Now the banks do it, but in those days we did it. We typed all the forms. And it was very interesting. Agency disclosure. In those days, buyers thought the agent worked for them. Why? Because you developed a relationship. You'd be out every weekend looking at houses, and you'd have laughs and maybe grab a sandwich together and spend a lot of time, a lot of communication. And sometimes the agent didn't even know the seller, but yet the agent, in most cases, worked for the seller, the one who paid them. So to clear up the confusion was an agency committee formed by the Mass Association of Realtors, I think around 2002. I was originally on that committee and had to get off. They changed the meeting date. Anyway, they come up with a mandatory agency disclosure form so that buyers and sellers both know what side of the fence the agent's on. It's very important to know that. So it's in writing now as opposed to verbal. That's one thing. And the interest rates, I mean, I got to tell you about interest rates. Back in the 80s, the interest rates were in excess of 18%. I mean, they kept on going up and up. It was hard to sell a house. We did all kinds of things. But
how could they afford it?
Well, sometimes we did what was called a wraparound mortgage, where the buyer would take over the existing mortgage, put down the down payment, and whatever the difference was, the seller might give a second mortgage, short term, just to get in the house. It was difficult at best, but let me just tell you the difference between let's say 18% then, and now it's 4.5 today, but last year was like 4% or even less. So for example, if you wanted a mortgage for $300,000, and today it's, I mean, last year, let's say, it was 4% interest. $300,000 for 30 years at 4% would cost you $1,434 a month, just principal and interest, no taxes or PMI, private mortgage insurance, just pay back the loan. That same loan, $300,000 for the same 30 years, but at 18%, would be $4,524.
And people went for it.
$3,090 difference. So the rate being so high, the payment was 3 times what it is today. I mean, it was difficult at best, believe me. But it wasn't always at 18%. CDs were paying 16%. So, you know, things offset.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Not anymore. But it just gives you an indication of the difference in interest rates. But I also have to tell you, when we did this, especially at Mike and Helen's office, tons of paperwork, as they say, that Helen had to type out. And because in those days, there were no mortgage companies. There were just banks. So it's not as though a buyer went to a bank and got a pre-approval or a pre-qualification even. We as agents determined what bank we were going to go to. And you couldn't do this now, but we did it then. We'd ask the buyer, okay, how much do you earn? What are your car payments? How much do you have in your savings account? How much are you going to use of your savings for down payment? This is all confidential information you certainly can't ask now. You can't ask a lot of questions now. But based on the information we got from the buyer, if they give us a deposit over the weekend, we'd say, okay, they're going conventional, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to make an application to the Randolph Savings Bank, now Envision, but Randolph Savings Bank then. We're going to make it out Monday, deliver it to Dick Batchelor, Ron Grant, or Don Jackson, and at the bank on Monday. They went out on Tuesday, they being the security committee and investment committee, usually 3 or 4 people. They go physically look at the house. Sometimes it'll be a drive-by. They make a determination whether they're going to proceed with that sale. If it was approved, we'd have a closing with Charlie Judge, the attorney, and that was great. But if it wasn't approved, we'd find out Wednesday. We'd have an application made out for the Stoughton Cooperative Bank, Leroy Clark, and they'd go out on Thursday. Their committee, Pete McGarvey, Arthur Panatti, great guys. So if they said no, Friday we'd know Friday, we'd make out applications to either the Worcester County Institution for Savings or the Home Savings in Boston with the lawyers Stevenson, Johnson, and Allen with the roll-top desks. It was unbelievable. And they'd usually take it. The Boston banks were a little more lenient. If it was an FHA or a VA sale, we'd go to a bank that specialized, accepted those type of sales. So it was the agent that decided what bank we were going to go to. There was lots of paperwork. We eventually we had applications from 28 banks in those days. 28 banks. Then there was a lawsuit. Somebody must have said something like, such and such a bank will never approve you for a mortgage, and the people sued the bank. The bank says, what are you talking about? We never met you. Well, the bank said the person that, the agent, was not an agent for the bank, but yet they had the application, so they were an agent for the bank in that sense. So all the banks called for a return of their application so there wouldn't be any further trouble in that regard. So it was kind of interesting. But we had a lot of closings in those days with J. Russell Coogan, the attorney for the Stoughton Cooperative
Bank. Oh, I remember him.
And
he was a neighbor.
Oh yeah, nice guy, and now Joe Clemens, who's great. So we did a lot of local sales and mortgages. But now all you have to do is go to a bank, get a pre-approval, and brokers don't have to make out the paperwork, just a purchase and sale agreement. Usually it's reviewed by the bank attorney or the buyer or seller's attorney, and you're on your way.
Interesting. What advice would you give to anyone who might be thinking of getting into the real estate business?
Well, getting a license doesn't prepare you well for being in the field. So it's important to me to give advice that you get educated, take as many courses as you can. I'd also suggest pick a niche. A niche being, let's say you want to do residential or commercial or industrial or waterfront homes or multifamily homes, neighborhoods. You pick a niche like a neighborhood, you want to do Beverly Hills. Well, you should learn everything you can learn about that neighborhood and know more than the next guy and specialize in that neighborhood. You can do commercial, industrial, anything you want to do in addition to that, but have a niche that you can fall back on that. So,
can someone who wants to get into the business go to work for several companies such as the way you did it and then do a little bit of learning from everybody and then go in on their own?
Well,
are there companies that would entertain that kind of?
Yes, a lot of the franchises. Well, when I had the Century 21 franchise, there was a lot of courses available, a lot of learning going on, and I used to send people who would apply to my office for a job. I'd send them to Century 21, the competitor. I regretted that several times. Even in the Stoughton office, some people are still there that I could have had, but I wanted them to get the training. And they've done very well at Century 21 or wherever I sent them. As long as they took these courses, you got to stay up to date. You can't just hope for the best and sit in your hands and
what would the company who's taking you on to train you, what kind of protection do they have from you taking the accounts that they have and bringing them someplace else?
Well, there's a procedure. If you the listings belong to the office.
Okay.
But technically, if I had your listing and I'm working for Century 21, you want me to have it. So Century 21 or whatever office you're leaving would say, hey, listen, go ahead and take it. Because,
really?
Because you might cancel with the office anyway. You don't know anybody at the office, or maybe you do. You would. You know somebody, but a lot of people say, well, it's my brother. I want to deal with my brother. So you'd cancel the listing with the office. But it technically the listing belongs to the office, even though you got it.
I guess the final question in this long, interesting interview would be, would you do it again?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't rather be on the fire department?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to do both.
Yeah.
I did both for a while. It was so rewarding.
But you'd do it again?
Helping people in their time of need. But I wouldn't change too many things. A couple of things, perhaps. My wife might disagree. She might want a lot of changes, more time at home, that type of thing. But it's been so nice. I mean, Stoughton has been great to us. We've had a lot of great stories. I had a lot of fun having these people work with us at the office has been an experience. We go places together, Lions Club functions, Christmas parties, whatever it may be. And we had a great group, and I'm very thankful for it. I'm thankful to the people of Stoughton as well.
That's nice. And you talk about the Lions Club. I believe you're the one to see for those people who want to take part in the golf tournament.
Oh yeah, thanks for mentioning that. In fact, we have a golf tournament coming up May 18th of this year, the annual golf tournament, and that money really helps the Lions Club put on a lot of things like the Concerts in the Park series. But more importantly, it's usually money donated to things like eye research, the main function of the Lions Club. I would originated, answering a challenge of Helen Keller to help the blind. So anything we do to help the Lions Club helps a lot of other people. And the golf tournament's a vehicle to
How many
raise some
years
money.
have you been running it?
Well, Eddie Hoppin, rest his soul, he and I used to run it many years ago, and then it dropped off, and I think this is the 4th or 5th year coming up.
And people that might want to get involved in the tournament that may not be golfers, there's sponsorships and stuff that like that they could get involved with?
Yeah, exactly. We have signs we can put on each tee box advertising the company, and people can come and they're welcome to dine with us. They'd have to pay, I think it's $25, and that's going to be at the Sons of Italy. And Mike Samarco puts on a pretty good meal, as you know.
Absolutely.
So that'd be worth it in itself. But the Lions Club is a great organization. I'd love to, if anyone's interested in attending the golf tournament, they can contact me at the numbers you discussed.
Repeat your phone number, the 0077.
Well, I'll give you my cell number, 781-408-1248.
Okay, and that's if you want to become involved one way or another in the golf tournament, which is in May.
May 18th.
May
It's on a
18th.
Saturday.
Hopefully the snow and ice will be gone by then.
Hopefully.
Well, again, I say thank you very much for coming in and telling us all about the old days.
Thanks for having me, Roy. Really appreciate
I think
it.
about that song, Those Were the Days.
Those were the days, my friend.
That's it. In the meantime, before we sign off, I do want to express my sincere thanks to Jeff Pickett, Mike Hammond, C.J. Mullen, Dave Young, Tanisha Salmon, and Leo McGowan. Leo, we hope you're making progress in recovering from your recent illness, and hope you enjoyed the show going down memory lane with Walter. That should be a program.
That's what I'm suggesting. Get some retirees like Leo and Stretch Fallon and Paul Roach and Bill Brophy and Joe Ruccio and Dory Peck and
Amazing, you're coming up with all these names.
Henry Chipman. They'll have some great stories. I was only on 5 years. I got a lot of stories. I mean, I can tell you some more, but
We'll have to have you take care of the arrangements, and we'll do that again.
Thank you.
Okay, Leo, I'm saying, Leo, keep working at getting yourself back in shape. This is Roy Cohen saying thank you very, very much for watching the show, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye now.